Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast NBA Playoff Edition. Today, we are going to be talking about the first round of the NBA playoffs and reviewing the play-in games just a little bit. And we have the NBA Hoops aficionado, the expert, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
New York Knicks! That's where I spent most of my time. I watched just about all of that game yesterday, but I'm doing good, Martin. I'm excited to talk about the New York Knickerbockers and everything that was the playing games in first round. Love the NBA playoff basketballs here.
When you yell New York Knicks, somewhere in New York, Trae Young's doing the shush. He's doing the shush right now. He can't hear you right now.
I just must be naive to it because I know that crowd was bonkers. I think I talked about this in our last pod that, man, like that's what I was excited for the most was the crowd coming back into it, particularly the New York Knicks crowd. And man, were they packed in there yesterday? Were they loud? It just with the organ and everything. It's what I love about basketball. Like I think I tweeted like playoff basketball with the Knicks is good for NBA basketball. And like I don't know who was who was chomping at the bit or booing, too much to our buddy's liking down there in Atlanta, but I guess he took it to heart. So I get it. And he quieted him. So
he did. Before we go to the Knicks, we do got to review the playing games. There were the playing games. Obviously, the main event was the Lakers and Warriors, which actually did not disappoint. Lakers came out on top there, 103 to 100. LeBron hit that, Jesus, what was it, 25 something feet? Dagger over Steph Curry, and LeBron himself stated that he just shot and he was seeing three different hoops and it went into the right one, and it was another clutch shot for the King. Steph Curry balled out as well. Evan, this game lived up to everything we thought it would live up to, and we talked about the TV rights and all that. That's what they wanted to see. Ratings were great.
Yeah, it was. The Lakers really, really, really struggled in the first half, and it was amazing. I told you I was going to struggle to stay up late East Coast time, but I woke up to your text with the Twitter shot that LeBron hit, and that was with 3 minutes to go, I think, right? Yep. So I was able to catch the end of it there. So, Lakers obviously stormed back in the second half because, Golden State was just hounding them defensively. I think at one point, the combination of LeBron, AD, and Schroeder at one point were like 2 for 24. Like it was bad at the beginning. That just shows you the on-off switch that comes with the LeBron James team, that they can just flip it like that, and you can never count out a LeBron James team. So, yep, they advance on to the first round. Golden State then got bumped to play the loser of the second game, which was got to play the winner of the second game, so the 9-10 series. So that would have been the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, and that game did not disappoint either.
It did not. It did not. So if you recall, to get into this scenario, first off on the Grizz to advance to this game, they took care of the Spurs by 4, 96-100. Awful game from DeMar DeRozan, 5 of 21 from the field. He had 20 points, getting the line a whole lot. But again, it's the same thing that we've been saying. Spurs just, they're a different Spurs team than we've seen. Rudy Gay had a decent game, but also took a jillion shots, only 8 for 21. I think first time in 50 years that a Spurs team in back-to-back regular seasons has failed to make the postseason.
Correct.
So I saw a couple hot takes on Twitter of, just God love him, the pop air is done. Who knows what things are going to look like. Obviously, he's coming to an end with USA Basketball here too. So, and he's getting up there age-wise. So I don't think that's too crazy, but nonetheless, Spurs are definitely in rebuild mode of sorts. But even to make it this game is impressive with the roster they had. So Memphis advances. they go on to play Golden State to play for that final 8 seed. And in overtime, 117-112, they take out Golden State. So in that game, heck of a game from Ja Morant, 35, 6, and 6. Obviously great contributions from Grayson Allen again and Mr. Brooks on the wing. For the Grizzlies or for the Warriors, it was, unfortunately their path was really dependent on Curry just going off, and he did get his 39 and 5. However, again, just not a whole lot outside of that. Jordan Poole had a really good game with 19, Wiggins with 22. But again, they lose in overtime there by 5. It was a close game and great game throughout. And the Memphis Grizzlies advance as your number 8 seed in the West. Martin, any thoughts on?
Yeah, for the Warriors, that I think the league needs to be put on notice for next year when they're theoretically fully healthy. When they have Wiseman back and obviously Klay Thompson, they're going to be probably in the Western Conference Finals next year, especially if Curry keeps playing like this. And the only thing I want to say about Ja Morant is that it was they dubbed it as a point guard generational battle, and both delivered. And Ja, and we'll go into with how they're playing Utah. He's showing he is one of the upper echelon point guards in the league right now, or ascending to that point. I would definitely say he's definitely a top 15 point guard, definitely. I don't know I would have to really think about anything above that, but I know he's in the top 15 of point guards right now in the league. So, and again, 2 great games from the Warriors, which means we were tuned in as basketball junkies. ESPN was eating that up in TNT. So, like you said last podcast, play-in tournament's here to stay. It's here to stay.
It's great. I will hold you to the statement that the Golden State Warriors are going to make the finals next year if fully healthy. So,
Western Conference.
Klay Thompson.
Western Conference.
Or sorry. Sorry, I misspoke. Yes, that's what you said. No, I don't even know that. I need to see, again, if healthy. So the only if healthy we have here is just adding back Klay Thompson. Obviously, elite 2-way player. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a top 10 player in this league. Depending on X, Y, and Z, he could be, definitely towards the top 5 than he is the bottom 10, or the bottom part of that 10. But you add him back in, and they still have depth issues. Wiggins is still Wiggins. James Wiseman is a good, promising young prospect. Mm-hmm. But they also could have had LaMelo Ball.
They could have.
And who is dwarfing anything that Wiseman did before. And again, very different positions. If you put Wiseman on Charlotte and let him, shoot a jillion turnaround baby hooks and everything else, he might put up some stats. But I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I need to see what else they do with the roster. Obviously, they're going to get that Minnesota pick.
Yes, they will.
Too. That'll be a top 5. So you can do some bundling with a Wiseman with the top 5 pick and some others and see what happens. Maybe that's enough to crack the Brad Beal thing. I don't know, but lot to be determined there. Let's switch to the East real quick. So the East play-in games we had, going back to Tuesday. So yeah, Boston took care of Washington when we were recording this last week. Obviously had that 50-point piece from Mr. Jayson Tatum in that game, 14-32 from the field, 8 rebounds, 4 boards. Kemba had a great game too with 29 and 7 boards. So they dispatched Washington. Washington goes on to play the winner of the Charlotte Hornets and the Indiana Pacers. And the Pacers just absolutely drubbed the Hornets.
Called that one.
Absolutely drubbed them. Yeah, Hornets were bad.
Yep,
so that takes us to the East play-in game, which I was wrong about. I had Indiana coming in as the 8th seed here. And it was almost the inverse of that Charlotte game where Washington just absolutely dumped on Indiana bad. Now, I will say with the caveat, I did not know, all things being equal, I don't know if it was enough to change a game. He obviously is a huge impact, but it was announced prior to the Tuesday first play-in game, that 9-10 game with the Pacers and Hornets, that Karis LeVert was going to be out for a considerable amount of time. So both of these games, they did not have him. Obviously, he's an impact 20 point per game score plus, who can distribute the ball and handle and everything else. I don't know if that helps what ended up being a bad showing or not by the Pacers, but Washington, led by Brad Beal's 25, Westbrook 18, 15 assists and 8 boards, and then 18 from Rudy Hachimura, and my guy, I told you about him, Mr. Daniel Gafford, off the bench, 15 points, 13 boards. I mean, those are great, like Andre Drummond in his prime type numbers. Those are great Jared Allen type numbers. Daniel Gafford, man's about to get paid a little bit. Washington advances 142-115 in a game that wasn't close from the get-go. They move on to your 8th seed, and we have an official bracket.
We do. Do you want to start in the East? Do you want to stay in the East then, since we're already in the East?
Yeah, let's start in the East. So we have, first and foremost, we have the Philadelphia, and some of these games have already been played by the time you're listening to this, pod listeners, but we have Washington advance to play the 1 seed Philadelphia, who has already taken the first game. They're up 1-0. We also have the Knicks and Hawks, Atlanta, with a game-winning shot yesterday from Trae Young after a really good showing by the Knicks. I mean, man, I just was so into that game, Martin. I watched a lot of the Bucks Heat game too. Didn't watch Brooklyn and Boston, but I particularly watched most of the Knicks and Hawks game last night. And I mean, that was Derrick Rose was vintage Derrick Rose. I mean, it was phenomenal, the contributions you're getting. Taj Gibson was rebounding, getting second possession points. The thing that really hurt the Knicks in that game, and I expect him to bounce back in the series, is Julius Randle was really, really bad. He'd only gotten to the line like once by the time it hit the third quarter, and that dude got to the line like 10 points or like 10 times a game coming into this. And then just particularly against the Hawks, they had a graphic on that he's at in the regular season matchups. He averaged 37 against the Hawks. Far from that yesterday, but certainly one of those games that was hopefully the Knicks aren't looking back and saying, man, like we absolutely could have had that. So also in the East, just to go back to that 76ers Wizards game real quick, 125-118 was Philly's win over Washington in the first matchup, including an impressive 37 from Tobias Harris. Anytime you can get 37 from that guy, that lessens the load for Embiid. I mean, he still had 30. And Ben Simmons only had to put in 6 points, but dropped 15 assists. Obviously, that's more his game as a defense and assists and rebounding type. So a weird triple-double to have 6 points, but 15 boards and 15 assists for Ben Simmons. Great contributions across the board. Danny Green, 11. Seth Curry, 15. George Hill, 11. And then for the Wiz, great showing from Brad Beal, 33, 10 and 6, 16, 14 and 5 from Westbrook, and 12 and 6 from Daniel Gafford. I had to say it. So those are our East matchups, which leads us to, if we go to tonight, we have Heat and Bucks round 2. And then I should say dating back to Saturday, the Nets are up again one over the Celtics 104-93. And then yes, the Bucks in a game-winning shot by Chris Middleton. That was a great game too in overtime. 109.
Started the playoffs.
I watched. Started the playoffs. Watched every bit of that one wire to wire. I mean, the Bucks. It's just not nicer to have Drew Holiday to look at as opposed to Eric Bledsoe. But I mean, they've absolutely got their work cut out for them here. Looking at the Miami Heat, and again, the Heat are going about things a little bit different. I mean, they were shooting something stupid from 3-point, and I mean, it was surprising to Milwaukee that they still were able to pull this out. Looking at how bad they were from 3-point totals, I mean, it was just crazy. They only hit 5 3-pointers and took well over 25 versus the Heat. Duncan Robinson made 7 himself. So I mean, that's just how it was. He had 24. Butler had 17, but really struggled. Miami's game plan for Jimmy Butler was fantastic. I mean, you could hold Jimmy Butler to 4 of 22 from the field. Like that's a win defensively for the Bucks, and they're that just goes to their length and everything else. So I expect this one to go 7, man. But
okay, so let's stay on that since we're in the East, and we'll start with Milwaukee. So it's already Milwaukee's up 1-0. We'll do this for each round. So we'll give our who we think is going to win, how many games it's going to be, and maybe one or two X factors. So we're already in Milwaukee and Miami. Miami is down 0-1, so Milwaukee's up 1-0. You think this is going to go the distance, and who do you have winning that one?
I think this is going the distance, but I think Milwaukee finds the right combination of the Rubik's Cube to get it done this year. Again, I think Drew Holiday obviously gets the nod on the big flashy name that they've added, but I just think their bench is way deeper too. Just with some of the folks they've added, Bobby Portis, Bryn Forbes, PJ Tucker. Those guys are going to make as much of a difference as anybody else that you've had on there. I mean, they are, anytime PJ Tucker is like your 8th or 9th man, that's just phenomenal defensively. And I will say too, the big thing that we saw a little bit of in game 1 that I expect them to go to, and they had a stat up that showed just the difference in shot distance from the rim for this individual. They're getting Brook Lopez touches 18 and under now. So take advantage of his height. He was in there grabbing boards, that weren't easy amongst some of the Heat bigs and stuff too. And then, if Adebayo gets in trouble or gets hurt, they're kind of up a creek without a paddle. Again, should be noted that even though Jimmy Butler did go 4 for 22, he's still dinged up a little bit with a right ankle, and obviously Vic Oladipo's out for the year. So, but I do expect this to go 7. Martin, what about you?
This is actually one of my tough ones. The other ones are in the West. But my biggest concern with Milwaukee, and I would agree with you 100% on everything you said, is we didn't even say his name, Giannis. His free throw shooting has just been terrible.
No, it's bad.
It's very bad. And as the best player, and we've seen Giannis in the playoffs where you back off of him, make him shoot, and he cannot make any of the shots he was making in the regular season. And Miami was one of those real teams to really expose him last year. And Jimmy's a little bit dinged up, but he went 4 for 23, right?
For who?
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, 4 for 22.
4 for 22, but he went that bad shooting-wise, but it took a Chris Middleton game-winning shot to win that game. And I honestly feel like if Miami would have stole game 1, Miami would have won this in 6. But I'm going same with you. I'm going to go Milwaukee in 7. I can't count this Heat team out because, like we saw in the finals, like we saw all last year, they are a resilient group. That guy up top, Pat Riley, that coach, Eric Spoelstra, they're resilient. But I agree with you. I'm going Milwaukee 7, and it's not even because of Giannis. It's because of the depth of bench and Drew.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not abundantly confident in this pick of 7 because this is why Milwaukee had to pay up for what they did for Drew Holiday, is because the Heat are a handful, and it's just only fitting these two teams are getting together again. So it's going to be a great series. This is one of the ones definitely I want to look forward to because there's other series obviously where it's a write-off almost. So one of those series. Let's look at Brooklyn real quick. So Brooklyn versus Boston. Brooklyn's already up 1-0. Obviously, Brooklyn's a juggernaut with every all-star the last 10 years you can name off the top of your hand almost. They're up 1-0. And again, it's the Golden State conversation we talked about last Tuesday. It's Jayson Tatum having to fill up the stat sheet, particularly, put the whole team on his back. It's the Madden gif of the guy with the broken back running down for a touchdown, because he put his team on his back. It's the same thing. You're going to get some help from Kemba. You're going to get some help from Marcus Smart. Also, shout out Robert Williams, setting up a Boston Celtic franchise playoff record for blocks. He had 9. Just animal around the rim. Nothing easy for the Nets and the buckets they were trying to get under the hoop and in the paint. But yeah, this is going to be This is going to be 4-0 sweep.
4-0? You going 4-0? I would agree, but I'm going to say 5 because my X factor, even though it's the playoffs, if Kyrie's going to come to work. Like, is he going to have one of his Kyrie moments and he's like, I can't play this game because of X, Y, and Z? And we've done it all year. We haven't seen it in the playoffs yet, but I'm going to give the Nets in 5 just because of that lingering thing.
I don't think that's bad. Yeah, I don't see it getting past 5. I could see, you never know. Tatum could go off, and all it takes is a combination of a couple guys to have an off day. Mainly maybe Harden and Irving have an off day because Durant's just way too consistent. But
he did have a scary fall if you saw that fall he had.
Oh man, that was scary. I don't know how he did that. He just popped right back up. I mean, that was something, all right. I mean, that was a devastating fall. Let's go to another series that I think is 4-0 or 5-1, Philly, Washington.
Agree.
With obviously Philly coming out on top. I think I'm more confident that this will be a 4-1. I think I said 5-1 by mistake earlier, but I think I feel more confident this series is a 4-1, just because of how close the first game was. I mean, it was only a 7-point win by Philly, and that was with Tobias Harris like drinking the Michael Jordan like secret stuff. Like there's just no way. There's just no way Washington wins a series, but I do think they're competitive enough, scrappy enough to give Philly the business for a game. Absolutely. Maybe game 4 or something in Washington, like where, hey, it's win or go home, and they eke one out to delay the inevitable by a game. What about you?
Yeah, this one I'm going Philly in 5 games, just because I do want to give some respect to Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. But then again, Russell Westbrook in the playoffs since Durant leaving Oklahoma City has been terrible. Like he hasn't made it out the first round, I don't believe, except for last in the bubble when they beat OKC in like 7 games, but then got smoked after that. And we all know what game time's done to them and all of that. But he just has not been good in the playoffs at all. Like it's almost a completely different player. And I feel like Philly right now, they're on a mission. And Ben Simmons, who I know we haven't talked about awards, I personally would give him Defensive Player of the Year. And Joel Embiid, who I think is going to finish second in MVP voting, I just think they're going to smoke them in 5. And I wouldn't be surprised if this series is over in 4 at the end of the week. But I'm gonna give them 5.
I agree. Let's go on to the series we led off with. The
Eastern Conference main event.
The Hawks and the Knicks, the 4-5. I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Okay. First, we've already talked about the crowd, which just in sports in general, it is great. We've already talked about New York basketball. It is great them being back in the playoffs. I think the last time was 2013 with Melo, which if you're doing your math, that was 7 years ago. Julius Randle, who should finish in the top 10 in MVP voting.
Top 5.
I agree, but they don't listen to us. But Trae Young, with these playoffs, my theme is that there's a lot of players who, if you're not a hardcore basketball fan, you've never seen on national TV. Trae Young is one of them because Hawks games have not been far and few between on ESPN and TNT. So I'm glad that people are actually getting to see how good he actually is. And obviously you start the playoffs with a dagger like that. But, I got to do it for New York. I'm taking New York in 7. I'm sorry. I want them to win so bad. It hurts. It's like they're Cleveland. I want them to win so bad. I want them to have a parade in the first round because honestly, I think they could push Philly to like 6 games, but I want New York to win. I think they can win. They have to win game 2. If they don't win game 2, then they're done. But I'm taking New York instead.
I think that's the case in a lot of them. It's if you start down 0-2, it's almost impossible to come back. I mean, it's not impossible, but I mean, again, that's before you get to play. The team down 0-2 gets to play a home game most of the time. But the Hawks have stolen one on the road now, so like, the Knicks need to steal one back. I'm with you. I want good things for New York Knicks basketball, the long sufferers of everything. I mean, man, the Hawks, I mean, they've got talent, man.
Yes, they do.
Capella's the NBA's leading rebounder at the end of the regular season. You've got Herter, Gallinari, Bogdanovich, and Young, who can fill it up with iso ball or coming off screens and popping threes. You got Okongwu getting some big minutes at the 5 coming up. And 2, we've got sweet Lou Will. I mean, I'll be honest. So that was a turning point of the game yesterday. Again, that trade really perplexed me, the Rondo for Lou Will straight up. Because I think Lou Will's a better player. And there were times where, New York would get up to a bubble of like 6 or 7 or something like that. And then all of a sudden it would just be Lou Will just chips back and gets a long jumper here. Lou Will pops a 3 on the left side of the arc. Like he really kept it from getting out of hand where they could come back and get that game-winning shot essentially. So, but I want good things to happen for New York Knicks basketball. I'm going to go Knicks in 7, and I'm really not confident about it because I honestly think the Hawks might, but this is more I'm trying to will it to happen. So let the record show that I think the Hawks might well take the series, but I want my official prediction to say New York Knicks along the side my name.
I also want to say about this matchup, it's the matchup of if you didn't watch the NBA all year, you didn't know these two teams were actually pretty good. Like if you didn't watch, if you went up to fans like, hey, you watch the NBA, haven't watched games, hey, Hawks and Knicks are playing each other. Like the Hawks and Knicks, like that's how I see it. Is like,
and they're not the 7-8 seed.
No, they're up. They're the 4-5, which, especially with the Knicks, great for basketball. Just fantastic. Evan, you want to swing to the West Coast?
To the West, yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, let's start with the defending champs. Let's get them first. Give them the respect.
Well, the defending champs, again, had that 1-game play-in with the Warriors. They advance. They're on the 7th seed. Game 2 is going to be tomorrow night as you're listening to this. That'll be Tuesday. They are currently down 1-0 to the number 2 seed, Phoenix Suns. Obviously, we had Chris Paul get dinged up in that game. We had a little bit of a shoving match with LeBron trying to get that rebound off the thing, and then the bench is cleared. But Suns take that 99-90. LeBron only took 13 shots, which I thought was a little low for him. So 18 on the game, 10 points or 10 assists, 7 boards. Schroeder had 14. Davis struggled shooting under 33%, 5-16 from the floor, 13. Suns. Booker had 34, big game from Ayton on 10 of 11 shooting for his 21 points, 16 boards. Chris Paul played 36 minutes before the injury, obviously, and he had 7 points, 8 assists. Martin, what stood out for me from that game and just how game 1 went?
Before I say my thing, I do want to shout us out because if anyone listened to our preseason stuff, we did say watch out for the Phoenix Suns this year when they got Chris Paul, because if you've watched Chris Paul's track record, anytime he goes to a team, they are instantly significantly better and their win percentage just increases astronomically. So just want to give ourselves on a pat on the back.
He's Bitcoin stock, man. Buy.
We called that before anybody else. And this was another player who...
And Monty Williams officially coach of the year now since we last recorded.
It's been sealed. And I honestly think Chris Paul should be in the top 6 or 7 of MVP voting. But another player who, if you're not a junkie of this game, and you finally get to see on national TV and see how good he is, Devin Booker. Like, there's a lot of people who never got to see him play because Phoenix hasn't been good since the Amari Nash days. And when you saw like the day Devin Booker got 70 a year or 2 ago, and besides that, not that many people know about him besides junkies or people listen to L7C podcast. So I'm really excited for him. I'm excited for his debut dropping over 30. DeAndre Ayton, he can play. Chris Paul, I'm hoping he's back in game 2. Like, I'm hoping that's not like a serious injury because I want both teams to be at full strength. And honestly, I just feel like the Lakers were just lax. they have that intense playing game. They did get some time off, but I felt like they just didn't have their right energy with them. And it's kind of weird too, because in the first round, like even though it's early, seeing LeBron team down 0-1 to like this is actually a competent team. And the Lakers were actually the betting favorites in Vegas to win this series. And I saw people saying Lakers in 5. I'm not going Lakers in 5. I do think, depending on how this game 2 goes, obviously, I do like the Lakers in 6, maybe 7. Phoenix will not go away quietly. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I don't. I certainly think Phoenix is capable of beating the Lakers. I'll be honest. I think part of my hesitancy with LA is, again, you've had LeBron out for a huge chunk, first time in like 18 years. You've had AD out for a huge chunk. They lose Rondo with some of that setting the table type stuff. All that adds up into they're kind of walking through the motions to an extent, and that's kind of what they did in game 1. I'm with you though on the prediction. I'm going to go Lakers in 6 or 7, and who knows? I mean, if that Chris Paul injury is devastating, and as we've been finding out from Woj and Shams and all those guys, they'll let us know like 2 minutes before the game starts. I think unless that's something crazy, I don't see the Lakers winning 5 by any means. But
no,
they're the defending champs. Going to give them, if it's a toss-up, which I think it is, I think I'm still going to go with. I'm going to give the defending champs credit or the benefit of the doubt and say 6 or 7. Let's move to the 1 seed who's down to a play-in team. The Memphis Grizzlies took game 1 against the Utah Jazz. I will say that obviously Donovan Mitchell did not play in game 1. So that obviously adversely affected that game. And then he is going to be back for game 2, they've said. But Grizzlies beat them 112-109 in the first matchup. And Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant were spectacular. They combined for 57, 11 boards and 6 assists, 3 steals and 2 blocks just for Dillon Brooks himself. Good contributions from Valanciunas, 15 and 12. On the Jazz side of things, Bojan Bogdanovic had 29, Mike Conley with 22 and 11, and then a decent showing from their usuals, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, Derek Favors. But the Grizz steal game 1, man. That's surprising.
Very, very surprising. And Donovan Mitchell, he was, if you saw the reports, he was very frustrated that he did not play game 1. So obviously, like you said, game 2, they said he's playing. Obviously the Utah Jazz, who were basically wire to wire, almost the number 1 overall seed in the NBA. Like their home record was ridiculous. Like they were just balling, and we talked about on previous podcasts that they can keep it up, and they obviously did. But Memphis is what the play-in sometimes games do for like the Lakers. I felt like they came in lax, but Memphis, I felt like they came in locked in because they were already in do or die basketball. They're in do or die mode already, and Utah is going to have to get in that mode. I do expect Utah to win this. I thought it was going to be in 5, but with Memphis taking game 1, I'm thinking now it's going to be more Utah in 6. Want to see how Donovan plays when he plays in game 2 on the 26th, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Utah in 6 now because Memphis took game 1. And Ja Morant, for other people, now you're seeing him. He is ascending, so keep that name in your recollection.
My gut wants to tell me 5 if Mitchell comes back and is completely fine. If he's not fine, I think this is a 6-game series. I feel like Utah's going to win, but I still feel like Utah comes back in 6 and wins the series. Yeah, you could talk me into, hey, Mitchell tries to go tonight, he's out, something devastating happened, and Utah's struggling and barely wins in 7. But I still like Utah to walk away from the series. But I mean, shout out Memphis and everything they're doing and some of the big contributions they're getting. They got Jared Jackson back from right towards the end of the regular season. Grayson Allen's really doing well. Dillon Brooks has stepped it up mightily. Utah lost this game not because of Donovan Mitchell, because they put up 109 and had some great performances from around, from their bench and their role players. They lost it because their defense was just so bad, which is uncharacteristic. And Brooks and Morant just shot out of the gym. So I think most likely it's 5. It could be 6. We'll see from there. So
there's one that I want to save for last. So we're going to go to Denver and Portland because the other one I do want to save for last. So let's go to Denver and Portland. Portland's up 1-0. We know Dame time. Like we are well aware of Dame time. Denver obviously has who we think is going to be the MVP, the Joker. Obviously, Jamal Murray is not playing. This was a series where, Evan, I really thought this could be a potential toss-up and go 7 games, and I'm still kind of wavering. But I just know this one. I feel 7 games on this one because this is going to be a close one.
I feel 7 on this one too, man. I think you're right. I think Denver's got the goods to beat the Nuggets. And you're right, without Jamal Murray, they've got to kind of find a new playoff identity, in Denver to an extent. Obviously, it's still Jokic centered, and Porter Jr.'s, phenomenal too. But, this is tough for me. I think I might be picking Portland.
Just
Blazers in 7. Put me down. Just right now on a Tuesday.
If you took Blazers, I will go Denver in 7 because I really could have flipped a coin and been fine with either pick because this matchup's going to be something because Portland is not an average 6 seed. Like we know the players on that team, and if Jamal Murray was healthy, I would probably consider putting Denver in the finals. But obviously they don't have that. But Michael Porter, maybe him and the MVP Joker do something, but we'll see. That's one of the series I'm most excited for. And now the last series. The Dallas Mavericks versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Dallas is already up 1-0.
Why are they up, Martin?
Well, I do want to shout out Luka Doncic, who bullied Pat Beverly in the paint. And since we are an NBA friendly show, he told Pat Beverly that he is too effing small. And once that psychological thing happened, I just watched that game and I knew because Evan, since last year, I haven't really watched the Clippers game unless they played like the Lakers. And so this one time I was watching them because you know how I felt about them in the playoffs last year and how irate I was about them giving their 3-1 lead. So I'm like, oh, they're going to come more motivated. But then it just didn't happen. You had the scene where, shout out to Kawhi Leonard, who had that monstrous dunk, but then everyone else was screaming on the dude, but they got the last laugh and won. And Evan, before that game, I'm just going to be honest. This was the upset I was previewing on the last one. I was going to pick Dallas in 6, and I am going to pick Dallas in 6. And this is before this game 1. I really have no faith in my most favorite hated basketball player ever, Paul George. Kawhi, I just feel like Toronto was lightning in a bottle, and I feel like the Spurs, because of the surrounding pieces, and you put them in some team like the Clippers, they're not going to win. And I feel like, honestly, I'm going to say it right now, if they get bounced in the first round, that team needs to blow up, and they have no asset for future picks, and they got to trade them and get rid of people because they're losing this series. Just going to say it.
I'm not sure if they're losing the series, but by the end of this conversation, I might get there as I kind of talk through my own thoughts. But let's go through the numbers. So these are all the things we talked about last year. I mean, we talked about, again, just how bad of a choke job it was that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were working out. Look, This is game 1 was more of a recipe of, again, not working out. Kawhi Leonard, 40 minutes, 26 points on 9 of 22 shooting, 1 for 6 from 3. Paul George, 39 minutes, 23 points, 8 of 18 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3, along with 4 personal fouls and 3 turnovers. Martin, when I read you the following names, Tell me with the utmost confidence who you think on any given night you feel confident is going to get you 12 points, not named Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. You ready?
I don't even know.
Just yes or no.
To be honest.
Pat Beverly.
No.
Ivanka Zubac.
No.
Marcus Morris Sr.
No.
Rajon Rondo.
No.
Nick Batum.
No.
Reggie Jackson.
Yes.
Reggie Jackson is going to get you 12 points for sure.
Ooh, for sure. Can you drop it down to 10? Maybe, but now no. I had to think 12. No.
Terrence Mann.
Oh no.
Here's the only one you can probably say yes to, but you can't afford to have a bad game for him. Serge Ibaka.
Yes.
Okay. If you are dependent upon Serge Ibaka to get you 12 points and he's your only yes from the entire roster, that's a problem.
Billy had 8 that game too.
If they have Lou Will, this is different. They're capable of beating Dallas with Lou Will. If you have Rajon Rondo as your scoring guard off the bench, no. Clippers in 7.
Wow. Remember, it did take them 6 last year to beat Dallas, and that was without Kristaps.
Let's be honest, they're kind of playing without Kristaps anyway. That dude struggled. I don't feel confident. I'm rooting. Obviously, it's a team we root against of sorts. I wonder if I can't remember who has the option on their deal. I feel like Paul George, one of the two. I need to look at the.
But I will push back. I will push back on that. I don't openly root against them. I wanted Lakers Clippers last year. I want Lakers Clippers again so we could get it over with. But they failed me last year. And ever since, only thing I can remember about the Clippers last year is that shot from Paul George from the corner hitting the side of the backboard. That summed up their whole season. And here we are again. You gave up a 3-1 lead last year, and now you're down 1-0. And remember, we talked about in the last one about how they flat out ducked the Lakers.
Yes, that was one of my last 2 points. They ducked the Lakers. And if they lose this series because they ducked the Lakers and they could have played someone else, that is unforgivable. Everyone's
got to go. Clean house. Everybody.
I don't know. You've got to trade Paul George.
Oh, well.
And pray you can get something from him.
I'm not a GM in the NBA, so someone will take Paul George, which is funny because today is the anniversary of his best play ever when he was on the Pacers and he had that monster dunk on Birdman.
Poor Birdman. Shout out Birdman, wherever you're at.
And Miami got the last laugh. That was Paul George's greatest moment, and that was almost 8+ years ago.
Final thought on Kawhi real quick for me. Kawhi is a fantastic player. He is an all-star caliber player who I won't say Toronto, Toronto wasn't a fluke for me.
I think if he would have stayed in Toronto, they would have been in more finals. Like they had the piece.
I agree. They probably could have. I think they potentially could have won last year. Mm-hmm. All things being equal. But the thing for me that stood out between the Spurs and the Raptors was the ball movement. The ball's sticking way too much with Kawhi right now because he doesn't have dynamic guards. They don't run an offense. Ty Lue isn't a guy who runs an offense. Ty Lue is a guy who manages personalities. Ty Lue got where he got because LeBron's LeBron. I hate to say it. I mean, he obviously helped, and he wasn't afraid to tell LeBron, like, listen, like I know you got 40, but I need more from you. You're LeBron James. Like you're like what? Like those kind of conversations that only a former player can have. Yada yada. But anyway, they can't. I just don't see how they can succeed as constructed. But for me, Kawhi succeeded because of the ball movement, because of the rotations, because of the coaching in Toronto and in San Antonio. Versus now you don't have those things, and you go from being an elite player in a really good offensive system to now you're an all-star player. And that's fine. It's respectful. There's plenty of all-star players out there. There's plenty of Aaron Gordons and everything else. Granted, he's way better than Aaron Gordon, but there's plenty of all-star players that have really, really good careers that never end up doing a whole lot. Now, granted, he's already done that, but I'm more speaking on Paul George's thing right now. And that's what comes with playing with Paul George. So they definitely sold their souls to make this happen with Oklahoma City and forcing their way in free agency and everything to go to the Clippers. So it's the players doing. And what I hate too for the Clippers is who wouldn't want to have both those guys on their team? Because I've been there with LeBron. Like, you want to get that player, you got to get rid of every asset. You've got to sell the condo in Hawaii. You got to sell the cars, whatever, but you get the hot girlfriend. And then when the hot girlfriend leaves and you've got a whole bunch of like taxes and bills stacked this high and everything else, that's what I hate for the Clippers fan base. It sounds like we're going towards a situation where like it doesn't work out. We're just going to hop to our new team or make our new version of Super Friends, like whatever. Like that's player empowerment, everything else. But the Clippers are like left sucking, just like my Cavs are left sucking.
Yeah,
I digress.
I have no problem with anything you said. It's just when those players do that and it does not work out, like it's not going to work out for them. They need to be able to take the heat. They can't run from it. You guys were the ones who really put this team together. And when you guys, well, you're saying they win in 7. I'm saying they lose in 6. I obviously don't think they're getting to the Western Conference Finals at all. So whenever they get bounced, you have to be able to take that heat and not disappear into the media thing. And Evan, that was our first round thing, but there was something else besides the NBA playoffs that took not just the basketball world, but the entire world by storm. And I do want to get your media expertise on this because I do want to know when enough is enough. So in the first time in like 20 plus years, Kwame Brown finally spoke out against everything people have said about him. It stemmed from All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. It obviously you gotta be an OG to remember when Kwame Brown got traded to Memphis for Paul Gasol, and Stephen A. called him a bona fide scrub, and he had enough and exploded on everyone, and now it's become a YouTube sensation basically overnight. So Evan, as a media guy, I just want to ask, like, Kwame's not said anything for 20 years. Why do you keep beating that horse if the guy's just been living his life?
I don't know. I just sometimes people just need content and they need to make it out of thin air, or, there's sometimes you've got those ancillary players that like get clout from talking about their past experiences. Like if they were just a role player, like not to single out like Matt Barnes, but like, players of that caliber. And I get and Kwame's been an easy target, but I like that he clapped back, man. Like that's good. Like his whole rant and everything else was fantastic and spot on. And I wanted to find out more about the story. I forget what player tweeted about it, talking about like one point he was in a club with Kwame and his brother.
Arenas.
And it took like 15 security guards to get those 2 7-foot dudes out the club. Like I want to find out that more.
Well,
but
the guy, he's been talking like he's been living his life, I think, down in Georgia or whatever, and like lives on a land. He has a tractor, all of that. So he's just been quiet, and he just said enough's enough. And I am so happy that he said that, because now you have obviously like people like Stephen A. saying like, yeah, he's right. I mean, people have been talking about it for 20 years, and he said nothing. He's never been disrespectful to anybody. For him to clap back is just like, he gained a huge following after that. And you see people trying to apologize. And my advice to everyone is just let the man live and stay away. The guy knows where you can have mutual combat without signing a waiver. That's a pretty dangerous dude. So let him be on his tractor and live his life.
On his big green tractor, it could go slow or it could go faster. Martin, I do have one more thing I want to bring up. Maybe this could be a new final segment on the pod. It's called One Last Thing. I don't know.
Is it about LeBron not getting suspended?
Okay, that could be 2 last things. Because LeBron should have been suspended.
Yes, he should have.
But you can't suspend the sheriff if you're the mayor. Like it's that kind of thing. Like and yeah, I don't know. It's the inverse. You can't be the sheriff trying to put the mayor in jail almost. Like you can't do that. and LeBron's the mayor of the league. So, But yes, different standards. You hate it, but that's totally what happened. Now, my final thing is today the NBA announced an expansion league in Africa. From Luol Deng, a couple other former players investing in it. I would love to see a dedicated 2-3 month summer league of NBA Africa, where it's its own league to get to watch throughout the summer. Think about the players that I love hearing the stories, and just think about where we would be as a league, where we would be in terms of the NBA and a global brand, and bringing it. The basketball without borders thing is kind of where it started, where you had players like Pascal Siakam, you had players like I'm trying to think. So who'd you say?
Joel Embiid.
I mean, players that never picked up a basketball until 14, 15. What if those kids had a basketball at 6? What if those kids had a basketball camp to go to at 7? Those are the pieces that come with hope, with putting together resources for a league like this. It's exciting. I really like the direction of where this is going. And I think NBA Africa can certainly be 5-10 years down the road. It can be a spot where it's not just a smaller low level league, but I mean, it could challenge the Australia basketball league. It could challenge, the league with Real Madrid and, some of those in there in Spain. I really have high hopes for this. And I think this is a big day for formalizing. Obviously they've done a couple US versus Africa, one-off all-star games in the last couple summers, but I'm glad that they've made it a name, they've made it a league, that they have former players investing in the people and the countries in Africa, and our sport and our humanitarian effort's going to grow because of it. Love it. I mean, I'm just excited for as a fan, potentially 12 months of basketball down the road, but more importantly, finding those players that, think about, for every Pascal Siakam we have however many more we missed,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
I agree. I am excited about it. Because there is general interest in Africa about the game of basketball. I don't want to equate it to this, but it could almost be seen like the basketball without borders over there could almost be seen as like the MLS. Where obviously, in America, NBA, that's the top spot, and then overseas and all that. But then soccer is king in Africa, and then you're bringing the NBA, which the NBA I think definitely does a better job with the globalization and all that than the MLS does. But I'm just saying, as a sport, trying to put its in somewhere. But I am excited. It's gonna be really good to see. And I know we kept saying one last thing, and then I brought up the LeBron thing, but then you just brought up this basketball without borders and 12-month basketball. So now I'm really going to throw it to one more thing about now Adam Silver has brought back talks of doing mid-season tournaments. Since we're talking about that, and that 12-month thing rung that back in my head. And that's how there's soccer leagues who do that as well over there in the Premier League and all of that. How would you feel about an NBA midseason tournament, and what prize could you give to make teams actually try? Would it be more draft picks? What could you do?
I'm at a loss, man. I don't think you can give me anything in the pot, anything to sweeten the pot to make that something I'm going to get Kawhi Leonard to play in, that I'm going to get LeBron James to play in. It's the NBA title or go home for the who's who. I just don't see. Maybe that works in soccer just because it's definitely more of a, not that there's not stars, but it's more of a team dynamic versus, I mean, that's what separates the NBA from the NFL too, is the personal brands of the players and everything else. I mean, you think players sitting out now is bad and doing the rests, did not play rests and everything else, throwing a midseason tournament they don't care about. LeBron was barking about, why are we playing the All-Star game this year? These players don't want to play any more extra games. Maybe there's a conversation if you drastically reduce the regular season like they've been talking about doing. I think we only played 72 this year. if they keep it at 72 or they bump it down to like 65 and you've got like a play-in turn, I don't know. But obviously the teams in the league are going to keep trying to speak this into existence for the money reasons. Ratings, I think we're still down somewhat this year for the league, but it's all about money, and that's why Adam keeps pushing it. But I just don't see what you can dangle in front of me, and what would be fair too. Like if you had a midseason play-in tournament, and like say, okay, well, we're going to award an extra first round pick to a team that wins this tournament or something, that could get some extra lottery boosts and end up in top. Like that's only going to hurt your teams that are still bad, still trying to get better through the lottery. Like it's not, I just don't see any incentive whatsoever. And like the players are still, again, they're championship motivated. Even if you like said, hey, we'll just do a pick 'em and like, maybe we'll pick like 8 teams every year who just get to do like a fantasy draft. And like they'll pick players, and you can end up with like LeBron and Giannis on a team, and they just do like a little 3-week run while the rest of the league gets a break or something. I don't know what that looks like, but that doesn't even sound appealing. Again, nothing supplants the importance of winning an NBA title. These players don't want the extra miles on their car. They don't want the extra miles on their body. They don't want to take the extra hits and licks. And what happens when the first major player gets injured in a midseason tournament and it adversely affects their championship aspirations? Like if AD breaks his leg in the tournament, Lakers are done. Like, and they didn't have to do that. So I feel like the league's forcing it down our throats, and we might end up with like Dennis Schroeder versus Colin Sexton in the championship. But like, I don't think anybody wants to see that. No,
I 100% agree. I don't think there's any avenue. Obviously, like you said about money, they could offer more money if you win, but it's like, would that money really be worth it? Like the example you just gave was perfect. If AD breaks an ankle or breaks a leg, LA's team's over. For a midseason tournament, that means nothing. Yeah, I just don't think NBA. I just don't think that's the right sport for that. And I agree. It's just there's no avenue for it. There's no incentive. There's no fair incentive, because, like you said, if they do this midseason thing, and they offer, let's just go crazy, 2 first round, more picks or whatever, the good teams are going to get them. It's not like the bad teams aren't going to win those tournaments unless all the good teams opt out, and it's only the bad teams playing. But even that's not going to boost TV ratings. So, man, I agree. I just had to bring it up since we were talking about 12-month basketball. But now I think we covered everything.
I think so. And now for my final thing, it'll be a sign-off. Thanks for listening, folks. Justin, thanks for the quick turnaround on the pod, our producer, who gets this to you every week across the network here. Let's watch some basketball, Martin. Go Knicks.
Go Knicks. And with that being said, thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. You guys take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.